Hello again, and welcome to another episode on the topic of households of glory, looking at how we enable households during this time within worship. Now, this next really cool episode is with a dear friend of mine called Matt Stinton. Matt Stinton's a worship leader. He was a former Bethel music artist, wrote some great records like This Is What You Do, and There Is No Striving as well, which has recently come out. But Matt, I interned for Matt in my third year. He's an incredible man. Super pastoral, he was kind of super fatherly. He was amazing, and he managed the worship department during that time. It was a really fun time, but I'd love to just stop right here and just go straight to him and listen to what he has to say. See you on the other side. Hello, everyone. Hello, Matt. And everyone because there'll be other people watching this.
Right.
Matt, because I'm talking to Matt right now. Everyone, this is Matt Stinton. I interned for Matt in my third year at Bethel. Such a dude. Had a lot of fun.
Lots of pool.
Lots of pool. Yeah, lots of pool. At the that place got shut down. I went towards the end of the year and they were shutting it down. So I asked them if I could just use their table for a few hours, and I got to use like these brand new like pool sticks. And then this chap came in. He looked like some trucker dude. And he was like, "Hey man, you want to shoot some pool?" And like he completely whooped me. And I'm not bad. Like I play snooker, so I'm like, pool, okay, that's pretty easy to do. Pockets are bigger, balls are bigger. He just completely whooped me. It's a different ball game, and after that moment, I respect the game of pool.
After getting whooped.
Yeah, after getting whooped. So yeah, everyone, this is Matt. Matt, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll just crack on with our themed discussion.
Yeah, well, my name is Matt Stinton. I'm 37 years old. I live in the United States in a state called Maine, which is way up north. Most of the U.S. thinks of Maine as kind of like where you go when you're going to retire kind of thing, but it's one of the hidden gems of the United States. It's amazing up here. Lots of rocky coast and lighthouses, and where we live has tons of amazing food. And it's just a really great place to live. So I live up here with my wife and our dog, Hario. For those coffee fans out there, yes, he is named after the company Hario that makes coffee stuff. So
love that.
So I'm a little bit of a coffee nerd. Both my wife and I are, but that's where the name came from.
Well, dude, down here.
And
sorry. I was just going to say, down here, I've been in Sussex, because we moved to the southeast of England in Sussex, and I've just like told everyone to get a Baratza grinder, a Hario scale set, and like a Hario pourer, because it means that wherever you go, you're going to get good coffee.
Yep.
And people have been doing it.
Yeah. It's definitely a worthwhile endeavor if you're a coffee fan. So, So all of your friends who have taken your advice will know exactly where my dog's name comes from. So, anyway, I'm a worship leader and a songwriter, and I'm currently a worship pastor at a little church here in Maine. Before that, my wife and I lived in Reading. We were part of Bethel Church. I was on the Bethel Music label. When you interned, of course, Luke, when you interned for me, I was the team manager for the worship team there at Bethel Church. So kind of helping oversee and run things there. So I've been around the block a few times. It was actually a really interesting thing for me to think back on, that I've legitimately been leading worship nonstop since I graduated college in 2006. So I thought, wow, like I've been leading worship almost every Sunday for 14 years. I was like,
Oh my gosh.
that's a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really long time.
So I've been
Wow.
around the block a few times, I guess you could say.
Yeah. So you've been through like I suppose been exposed. I mean, obviously being at Bethel, and you were, part of that, innovating I think for us, even when we went there, it was because we heard the sound first. I think for all of us that we heard a sound coming from the place, and um, so you were quite um, an important part in creating that sound that I mean, certainly Claire and I heard, um, you know, sort of 2013, 14, the Loft Sessions, with your song, This Is What You Do, Give Me Jesus. Was that on Tides? I think it was on Tides.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just a tune. That was 2012, right?
I think Loft Sessions was 2000. I think that was 2012, and Tides is maybe 2013.
13.
But
Yeah.
yeah, right around there. I can't remember anymore.
Yeah. So
It's been a few
just
years.
it's actually like ages ago, really.
Yeah, it is.
We've been like home 4 years yesterday. Like for the
Because of the
third year.
lockdown, you've been home. You've been at home
Yeah,
for 4
since
years.
lockdown, I've been home for 4 years.
That's what it feels like.
I love it. So wow. Okay, so just moving on. We're on Zoom here, and I'm not sure if there's like a time limit on Zoom.
Um,
I
it
hope
depends
there's
on
not.
your account type, but it would let you know, I think, before it cuts out. So
I
should
hope
be
so.
good.
I hope so. On that basis, I think I might just jump straight to it.
Just do it.
So, so Matt, what we've been doing here is, so we're a Church of England church, Anglican church, and we live in the middle of who knows where, and it's amazing. It's fantastic. God certainly brought Claire and I to the right place, and it's been going great. What we've been doing since lockdown started was we started streaming like everyone else did, and
Yeah.
well, not streaming. We were actually pre-recording, and which is, we were just adapting, really. We felt like we
Right.
were innovating, but we weren't really. We were just adapting. Um, but yeah, we were pre-recording because we wanted to stay ahead of the game in case, I think I had the virus at the start of all this. So, I was on 14-day isolation, and, our vicar was too, James. So we kind of had to start doing things in our homes. And now we're getting into a rhythm of doing this week in, week out, pre-recording on a Tuesday, editing. So it's ready for a Sunday, because we want to still, do Sunday church and serve our community, and feed people, as well. But there's, you know, there's still like this growing appetite. Like we can't, do we keep plugins? Do we keep putting stuff out? Do we keep, plugging away at creating content to push out? And I think for all of us, certainly for Claire and I, it's the church at home has to come before the church outside of home. And if we want to see, this is kind of stealing this a little bit from James and Lou. Lou's James's wife. If we want to see revival in our nation, we need to see it in our homes first. If we want to see healing in our nation, we need to see it in our homes first. And the emphasis on, households. So I guess the biggest question is, to start this off, is, how do you feel, or how do you envisage, as a church in general, enabling households to worship? And I've been racking my brain on this. Do we keep pushing out content, or because we can't can't make people worship. You can't, you can't. Uh, it's a personal thing. It's an expression, and it's between you and the Lord. Um, but if as a church leader, as a ministry leader, a ministry head, you know, what is our job in all of this to enable households to worship during this lockdown period, where I guess geography isn't a thing. You can just log in online or connect, over the
Mhm.
internet. So that's good. But how do you think we can enable that and encourage um, our community?
I mean, a lot of this, a lot of this, I think, is going to come down to, I think it comes down to connection. I mean, as you said, like you can't make someone feel like worshiping, and I think we could take this conversation a few different directions based off of that concept. Um, but I know for us, like at our church here in Maine, obviously we're been locked down too. I think you can create so much content, video after video after video after email after email after email. But there's something about coming together. That's why it's all over the Bible, don't forsake coming together. Like we see what happens when two or more are gathered and all of that. And the truth is God is so big that he's not going to get all technical about it and be like, well, you're on a Zoom call right now, so technically you're not gathered, so I don't have to show up. So he's not gonna be like that. And I think that there's what people really want, and I think this is what we all want, is like we want that connection. That's the piece that we miss the actual coming together. And I think that something to be said there's something to be said about, you can create a lot of content, but I know what we've been trying to do is trying to create more content where people can actually see each other. They can see other people from the church, and it's not just one person like, "Hi, me again. Hope you're all well." Well, I don't know what else to say, so hang in there. And so we trying to have some sort of, you know, more than one person, like trying to get several people to just kind of put content out there, because it's nice to see other faces, nice to see the friends that we haven't been able to see. And I think in a spot where, I mean, we're just able now in our state. Some states are more or less completely wide open now, but in our state we're still closed up a fair amount. And we're just at a point where small groups of people are have been given the okay to get together, and we've been taking advantage of that. But that's not always the case everywhere. And I think what's it like there? Are you guys allowed to get together? Or are you still being discouraged from that?
Yeah, I think um, that we have, because I think as well, we're Anglican Church of England. There's more of um, an accountability, I suppose, and so we're taking our lead from, and I'm still learning this stuff, right? So we're
Mm,
taking our lead
right.
from the local bishop, who's then taking lead from who he's accountable to, ultimately taking lead from Justin Welby, the top dog, um, who's then
Gotcha.
taking lead from the government. So I think that the newest piece of news is that churches, which typically are older buildings that have been around for centuries, that are normally always open to the public, um, for private prayer or whatever,
Mm.
um, they are now we are now able to go into them, and we are able to uh, either clergy as well as an organist. In We don't really have an organist here. It's, I mean, me really as the worship pastor,
Right.
um, and a team of tech guys can go in to stream a service. So we've been doing that pre-recorded, um, and I think at the moment that's where that's it, and we have
Okay.
to like take roll or attendance of everyone that's been in the building and do some sort of housekeeping in all of that. But I think we're looking at the next steps of, I think what in some places you can go to church, but you can't sing because singing is one of the transmitters, which doesn't for our like church does not work. Like we have
Right.
to sing, we have to express, we have to raise our voices in worship or whatever it might be, and
Right. Right.
so that's kind of what we've been doing. So we're able to do what we're doing, you know, from um from that system. But I think we're, it might slowly ease into, okay, you can have 50 people in your building or
Got it.
whatever. So that's kind of what we've been doing, and
Okay.
it's been a system that's worked. But again, we don't want to keep pushing out content out like content all the time, because
Yeah.
you know it's this has to be a personal desire too, to want to actually enter in yourself. And I think what we're trying to do, we're trying to encourage households in general just to do church. I think some families are, they're watching our Sunday service on a Monday, and some families are fasting on a Friday, doing prayer and fasting. Some families are actually having a time of worship together, just with any musical instrument they have to hand. Or some families are uh like waiting on God for words of knowledges, and just having those times, like 15 minutes, let's just wait on God for 15 minutes, before a meal, to see what he's
Yeah.
saying. So it's those sorts of things where you're not tied in, it's not like routines church as we normally would think it. It's becoming ad hoc. It's becoming, whenever we're together, we're just coming in to an intentional time of being
Yeah.
with God,
Got it.
which is great. That's kind of what we've been doing. But um, yeah,
Yeah. And I think what I know something that we've tried, and I think we're all just experimenting with this, right? And my wife runs the social media for our church, and she just said, "What kind of content do you guys want to see? Like, we don't want to just churn out content just randomly. Like, what's the kind of thing that's feeding you the most? What's the thing that's helping you the most?" And I think that getting that feedback has helped us kind of direct where we've been putting our priorities. And so something like that could be helpful. But I think in a position where you're having to, obviously still stream everything, I think, this Zoom and like Google Meets and all these things are pretty pretty helpful in the fact that you could have a virtual worship night where you have one person leading worship and everybody else just cranking up their headphones or their laptops and just being there to worship along with it. And so I think finding out what's actually and being able to like see people and see each other and be like, hey, I know the face on that screen. All these faces that I'm seeing right now, I know them. I think that there's like where you can't actually meet together yet, finding a way to meet together and find like, because I think that there that is such an important piece is we're the most at risk when we're isolated, spiritually speaking.
wow, yeah,
And so I think when I look at everything that's going on right now, it's all about isolating each other, isolating ourselves from each other. And that feels like the work of the enemy to
yeah,
me.
yeah,
And even just with the fact that we're being taught to be afraid of each other, we're being taught to be afraid of being around each other. And I think that to me stands out as being maybe the biggest problem. I mean, yeah, people getting sick is, we don't want that, obviously. And but even more, like when we're talking about, well, what's happening on a spiritual level, I feel like that's a big danger, is the isolation part of this. And I know that they're seeing this has been taking a huge toll on a lot of people. A lot of the states are doing studies, and they're finding like so many people are committing suicide, and drug addiction and alcohol addiction is all on the rise because people are isolated, and it's not healthy. And so I think that the enemy is always trying to undo God's work. And God's work is to bring us together. God's work is community. God's work is family. And I just think about what Jonathan Helser said about the more that heaven comes to earth, the more the earth will start to look like family.
Yeah.
Because family is where, like, the family unit and the function of family is God's business.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he wouldn't call himself a father.
Yeah. Come
You
on.
know, he had just called, he would have called himself something else, but he's referred to himself as father. And to me, that speaks that God's priority is, and always has been, family. And so and what do you get? Like, there's so many benefits of family, but community, and like that community piece, the fellowship piece, is so important, that for us to not have it is hurt it, like it hurts us. And so I think ways, like, to me the biggest thing is, how can you like, having people worship at home is super important. And you can't make somebody worship, but and it comes down, like, we have to uh be connected to each other. And I think that when we're connected to each other, we're able to say, hey, whoa, you sound really, like, things sound pretty heavy over here. Are you doing okay?
Yeah.
And having someone be able to see where you're at and speak into your life, it's that the iron sharpens iron kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, like, that's where I feel like, in the middle of all of this, like, the content that you put out is important. And but being able to find a way to bring people together, even virtually, to that's where I think the real, like, as I don't know if you guys say this, but where the rubber meets the road, that's what we say over here anyway. I mean, like, that's where it starts. That's where the work gets done.
We get it. We get it.
All right. Yeah.
That's
But I
so
feel like
good.
that's where I feel like the emphasis should be at this point, should be on community, and out of community. And I think that people will just do better when they have people that they're able to, where they're not just sitting at home in isolation, suffering from, the effects of being isolated from each other. Uh, they're not just at the mercies of, like, we think our ways into all sorts of problems, right?
Yeah.
And it takes somebody else saying, whoa, slow down, let's talk about what's going on right now. And
Yeah. 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 That's so good. And so in a way, what you're saying is, it's like one way that we could enable that within households during a period where, you know, I mean, realistically, some aren't able to get out of their house. I think we're allowed to meet with 6 people now or something like that. But
yeah,
even still, like, the community bit is hard, and it feels like that um there is actually, although there's limitations, there's actually possibility. And so, one crucial way to enable households within worship is to actually connect firstly with one another at home, your house community, but actually be, intentional with even messaging and texting or Zooming and staying connected like that. That's
Yeah,
so good.
definitely.
That's
Yeah,
so,
and
so good.
you have to have there's the worship is there's two forms of worship, two primary forms of worship, personal and corporate, and you have to have both. Because there's something that there's a unifying thing that happens when you worship together. Worshiping on your own personal worship is about your walk with the Lord. Worshiping corporately is about our walk and our movement as a community, and it ties us together and it unifies us, because there's nothing more unifying than the presence of God,
Wow.
because that's just the nature of it. God is unity.
Wow.
The enemy is division, God is unity. And so when you like worshiping on your own, um, it's important, but that's for your walk with the Lord. When you worship together corporately, it creates that unity. There's just something that you can't replace it. And that's why I think that it's so important for us to find ways to worship corporately.
Yeah.
And sometimes that means singing,
Yeah.
and other times it looks like other things as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think, one of the things that we've started doing here is because we've been, I think they just gave the like June 1st, we're allowed to meet in groups up to 50.
Wow.
Before that, it was up to 10. And in groups of 10, so we started having micro gatherings where people come over to each other's houses to watch the Sunday streams together. And if you guys are able to do, 6 people, then I think, why not? For those who are comfortable, because that's really the important thing. For those who are comfortable, why not get together in small groups like that and watch the service and worship together?
Wow. Yeah, that's so good. We do have these, they're kind of like home groups. We call them Kingdom Family Communities, um, or KFC for short, which I can't wait to reopen. I've been wanting
Yeah.
one of those for the longest time. Um, and I think that's so good because, how can you're so right, personal and corporate, and how can you worship corporately when you can't, when you're isolated and you can't see anyone, and I think the next step would be doing things bigger than your household. So maybe a small home group,
Yeah.
like you were saying, actually able to meet, um, and kind of do mini church together, or watch the stream. That's so, so good. Because I think over here, we've been trying to think, what do the next stages look like? Do we just run 10 services on a Sunday, and like bring in streams of like 50 people, at a time? And that doesn't seem realistic. So, um, actually doing things in our kingdom family communities, um, as a way of doing church corporately
Yeah.
before we can actually all meet as a bigger corporate body, um, is, I think, a really good option on the table.
Yeah. Well, I think that you actually find that community and like bonding will happen uh, much more intentionally than even on a normal Sunday morning service, because there's something about being in someone else's home. There's something about having someone into your home like that it doesn't get much more personal
Yeah.
than to have someone in your house, and you have coffee and you have you know to use a very Christian phrase, the breaking of bread
Yeah.
together. Like there is something very spiritual about that. And
Hmm.
so I think that that's a great way to kind of come out of where we've been. And for people who are, I know everyone processes this differently. And I know some people have had a harder time processing it than others. And that's because we're all different. And for the people who are nervous, for the people that have concerns about big groups, they're going to feel much more comfortable going into their friend's house than they will be going in on a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
And I think that there's several benefits to moving forward this direction. But
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that's the community. It all comes back to corporate worship and finding a way to do corporate worship together,
Yeah.
creative ways, because that's what we have to do right now.
Yeah. Exactly. It's like we're isolated. So how can we be savvy and be connected even in our isolation, even when we can't physically go outside of the house? For some of us, how can we stay connected? And as church leaders, how can we encourage that connection? So you're not just the ones doing it, all the time. Um, actually setting it as culture. I think this is a great opportunity for a culture reset as well. taking
Definitely.
taking a lot of the great stuff, but this is a new normal, and taking a lot of the great stuff and then trying to now put in some of the new stuff, where the church has always been the central piece, which has been amazing. But actually now that the family at home is
Yeah.
almost going to be the central piece. And when we come together, it's like one big celebration. Our vicar James would say, Sunday is coming together to enjoy the spoils of war. From the week before, we've come together to celebrate the goodness of God with one another, and to praise Him and to worship Him together. Um, I mean, church is great for being fed as well, but that's also a personal thing, to
Yeah.
personally feed after the Lord, as well. So, um, mate, I think this has been fantastic. Super good food, for us. So the main takeaways I've got from this is, how can we not only uh, boost and elevate our personal walk with the Lord, but how can we boost and elevate our corporate family time together in a place of isolation? And like, off the back of that, what can we actually look to in increasing community, um, especially in this season, for vulnerable people, for people that are in need, for people that are lonely? How can we, encourage that and do that? So this has been fantastic.
Yeah.
Super
Awesome.
appreciate it. Before we sort of end this, for your guys, and I'm not sure if Zoom is still going, so I'm just going to continue going with it.
Yep.
For you guys, in sort of the church where you guys are at, what can we pray for? Like, we were on a alumni call, that Bill came into, for like a European alumni call. There was like
Yeah.
500 people on the call,
Wow.
and we asked him this question: what can we pray for Bethel? And he said, we just need power and wisdom, because there's so many things that just can't be left anymore. And but we also need the wisdom to know how to deal with things that we just don't know about or haven't figured out yet, you know. um
Mm.
but for you guys, like, what can we be praying for you guys, where you guys are at?
I think a lot of it just has to do, probably has a lot to do with building the community, because I feel like that's been, you know, God's always up to something, and anything that the enemy is trying to use for evil, the Lord is going to say, "Oh, really?" And He's going to flip it, and because He always has the ace up His sleeve. It's not even a contest, and so I think that in through this whole thing, we've seen the need for increased community in our church, because we're mobile. We're setting up and tearing down every Sunday. We've been meeting in a school in their cafeteria, and uh, there's just so much work to be done. And so I think because there's so do that, our community, like our connection with each other, has suffered because there's always work to be done. And so we're coming out of this trying to be much more intentional about our connection. So I think that would be wisdom, a permanent space is always
Yeah,
the
come on.
ideal, and in connection within our community, because out of connection and community, that's like that's where stuff actually starts to happen.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
well, thanks. I appreciate that question.
Yeah, totally. We'll get praying. And yeah, but mate, thank you, mate, Matt, mate. I always, for those of you who don't know, I used to everyone when I was in school, everyone was called mate, just because it's a very English thing to say, and I was predominantly one of the only English people around in that circle. So yeah, and I do say it here quite a lot, actually, mate. But Matt, it's been amazing. It's been seriously amazing to have you. Thank you so much for your time. And this is really going to bless a lot of people, I think, and I know it will. But thank you so much for your time. And we'll probably end the recording here, and so Matt and I can say cheerio. But guys, thanks for checking in. Matt, thanks for doing this.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, we'll see what the future brings in this next season.
Yeah,
Guys, it's been fantastic. See you all. That was absolutely incredible. That was amazing. Just talking about family, and especially when we're on our own, how can we incorporate family? You know, with Matt said, you know, there's two forms of worship: personal and congregational. And how do we, if we're on our own or if we're in lockdown, how can we congregationally be intentional about worshiping the Lord together? So that was so good. I don't want to spoil it by saying any more than that. So I really hope that you wrote notes on that and that it inspired you, built up hope inside you, and just encouraged you. So I really hope it blessed you so much. It's been great. See you next time. Love you guys loads. See you later.